Thank you everyone for being here today for our HubSpot webinar. Hopefully today we can show you some new HubSpot sales features that can help boost your efficiency with things like lead scoring, sales analytics, and some other features we'll show later. Now, my name is Grayson. I'm the technical sales engineer here at Topline. So that means I work with the tech and the sales teams on things like demonstrations, trainings, and customer projects across all our supported platforms like Dynamics, Zoho, and HubSpot. I'm also actively involved in an internal product we have called SymphonySync, which is a product that helps integrate between HubSpot and Dynamics. And with that, I'm involved in the development, customer support, and some content creation. Now, as for today's webinar, we got a pretty packed agenda. So first, we're going to take a look at some new options for fields in HubSpot. So those are going to be new time since and time until properties that we can use for things like filtering, reports, and dashboards. After that, we'll take a look at list management and specifically the ability to exclude specific people from an active or dynamic list. We'll then take a look at lead scoring and how we can set up scoring metrics. We'll take a look at the sales workspace, which is a nice all-in-one sort of platform for salespeople to manage their leads, their deals, their tasks, and their activities. Then we'll take a look at Breeze Copilot and some new functionality regarding autofill. So we'll see how that works when we're typing in prompts and how we can select prompts and have HubSpot direct us to the information we need to fill in to get the most out of those prompts. And then finally, we'll take a little bit of a look at our sales analytics and reporting, and specifically how we can export and then schedule those reports on a recurring basis. So HubSpot will just email us without us needing to seek out that information. With that said, let's jump right into the HubSpot demo. So the first thing we're going to see here today is going to be those properties I just mentioned, those time since and time until. Now for our example today, we're going to be looking at creating some properties for the deal object. Now, if you're not familiar how to get to this page, you can do so by clicking your settings menu over here on the left-hand side navigation, going down to data management and then properties. Here's where you're able to see all the properties HubSpot has to offer for each of your different objects. And like I mentioned, right now we're going to be taking a look at how this would work on the deal object, but you could also select any other object in your system and utilize this functionality. So to create these new properties, all we need to do is click Create Property over here on the right-hand side. We'll give it a name. So for instance, maybe we want to know the amount of time in days until a deal is going to be closed based on our estimated close date. So I'll type in a label like time until closure. Oh, it looks like we already have a time until closure. So instead, let's maybe take a look at time since creation. Then we'll take a look at our field type here. And in order to access this functionality, we're going to scroll down to calculation. Now, previously, you were able to calculate this date value using a custom equation, but that required some coding knowledge in order to actually make the most of this functionality. Since the new year, HubSpot has added new property type options, which are going to be our time since and time until. And what these do for us is these simplify the ability to implement that date range that we're looking for. So here we can just select any date property. So for instance, I'm looking at time since creation. So I'll reference the create date as the start and the end date as today. And all this is going to do is it's going to give us a numerical value for the difference between these two dates. Then we just need to click create. And what HubSpot will do for us is automatically apply that to every deal we have in our system. So we don't need to go in and manually update it after the fact. As soon as we create that property, HubSpot will apply it everywhere for us automatically. Now let's take a look at how this might be used when we're looking at filtering. So right here, I have our typical deal list view. Now, previously, they did have these little drop downs here where we could do some basic sorting on things like create date and close date. But as you'll notice here, we do have some pretty limited options. So all of the options here are going to be preset defaults by HubSpot. So things like today, yesterday, some time ranges like this month, last month, quarter, year, and so on. But if you'll notice here, we really don't have a way to pick specific values. Maybe we want to know something like the last 3 weeks, the last 21 days. Out of the box with HubSpot, without that property, we don't really have that option. But with our new property that we've created, so this is going to be our time until closure. You'll see here with this new property we've added, we can do more sorting than we were able to with that default out of the box property. So things like time until closure is less than 60 days. After we click apply, it'll apply to our view just like any other filter would. Now that was our new property types. Next, we're going to jump into our list management. So if you haven't used lists in HubSpot before, these can be found over here under our CRM, and then down here at the bottom at lists. Now the way lists work in HubSpot is there are two types of lists. There are active lists and there are static lists. So active lists, the way those work is they choose records based on certain filter criteria, and they update dynamically as you edit or add new records. So if you've just done a new import and you have a currently existing dynamic list or active list, all those new records, if they apply to that same criteria, will be automatically added to your list. On the other hand, we have static lists, which is where you get to pick and choose exactly what records you want on a list. But if new records are added to the system, they won't get added automatically to your list. You'll need to go and do that manually. Now, something HubSpot has added for us is a way to sort of mix and match that functionality between active and static lists. So right now, if we want to take a look at this example list I have here, and if you'll notice that this is active, so it will update dynamically if we add new records or change any existing records. But let's say I want to remove some of these people. Now, typically, with the old way of doing things, in order to do that, you would have had to add certain filters that would have helped you to exclude those, but that can be really tricky, especially if it's just a one-off record that meets the other criteria the same as the other records. So now what HubSpot has allowed us to do is we can exclude specific records from these lists. And all we need to do is while we're looking at our list, we can click on any of these records and then click exclude from list. And what this will do is it will remove them from the list, but still keep it as an active list. So if we do add any new records, those new records will still get added to the list, but that record we excluded will never get added back to this list. Now we can see that exclusion by going over here to our settings. So previously we did have the ability to exclude members of this list based on if they were included in another list. But as we can see down here, we do have this choose one or multiple contacts to exclude. And like I mentioned, this is where we can pick and choose those specific contacts. Now we did just exclude that contact, but it will take a moment to show up here. But one thing I'll note is that you can only exclude up to 25 contacts. So if you need to exclude more than 25 contacts, you might want to use a list instead or change your filters in order to exclude all of those contacts. All right, that was the new list functionality with our ability to exclude specific contacts from our lists. Up next, we'll take a look at lead scoring. So lead scoring is some new functionality that based on certain criteria, we're allowed to assign values to the records in our system, and we can set up those criteria to match exactly what we're trying to look for to evaluate our specific prospects. Now, lead scoring can be found under the marketing and then down here at lead scoring. Now, if we go to create a new lead scoring metric, I can show you how it works, and then we'll jump into an existing lead scoring metric that we already have. So when we go to create a score, there are 3 types of scores and 2 different objects we can score against. So those objects are going to be our contacts and our companies, and the ways in which we can score them are contact engagement. So this is going to be related to records that are with the contact. So things like emails, things like meetings, things like activities, clicks, website visits. We'll also have our contact fit score, which is going to be based on specific properties that are on a contact's record. So things like industry, department, job title, maybe location. And then finally, down at the bottom here, we have the ability to combine those contact engagement and contact fit scores into a contact combined score. So again, with these lead scoring, we have two different options, the contacts and companies, and then three possible ways we can go about scoring them. Now, if we jump back, we can go into an existing lead scoring metric so we can see a little better about how these function. So with our scoring metric here, based on our criteria, we'll see an overview. So of the contacts in our system, how many did we score? What's the average score? What's the minimum? And what's the maximum? And we'll also see the score distribution chart. Now, if we want to edit the metrics or just see the metrics that contribute to making the score, all we need to do is click Edit Score up here, or if we go back to All Scores, we can click Edit right here. Jumping into our lead scoring metric, we'll see how we can define the parameters that make up our lead score. So one of the main things here is going to be this score limit here. So this is where you assign a maximum value for this lead score. And this is going to be in increments of 100, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. Below that score limit here, we'll have different sections that we can add and create. And these are just ways to help you segregate the data in your system so you have a better idea of where things are contributing to this overall score. So in our example here, we have two existing score blocks. We have one for marketing, where we're looking specifically at marketing emails. And with marketing emails, things like if they've replied to an email or if they've clicked a link in an email. At the bottom here, we'll have something like job title. So we can see based on a property on that contact's record, such as job title, we can check if they're equal to a marketer. Now we can add new groups by clicking down here. So whether we want it to be an event group like those email clicks or a property group where we're checking against something like that job title. And that just adds these sections here that we can collapse and add our specific criteria to. So if we're looking at properties, we can add another property. We can also add a list membership criteria or even add other associations altogether. Now with each of these groups, we do have this group score limit, which contributes to our overall score limit up here. Now the way these group scores work is these group scores altogether will equal your score limit. And again, they're just segregated so you have a better idea of exactly what areas are contributing, so it makes it easier for that differentiation. With these score values, we can also change these if we'd like to add sections or maybe weight a section less harshly when it comes to lead scoring. We also have the ability to decay scores. And what this is going to do is it's just going to give us this ability to reduce the score by a certain percentage at certain time intervals. Just making sure that the older data, maybe a link they clicked on a year ago, is probably not as relevant as a link they clicked on yesterday. So with any of our sections here, we do have the ability to decay those scores. Next, we'll have our contact section here. And this is where we can choose exactly who we want to try to score based on the metrics we've set up. So you can score all contacts in the system by your metrics, but you can also choose specific lists that you'd like to score with these metrics. And with that, you can choose up to 5 lists. So right now we're just scoring this marketing test list, but we could add more lists or even just include this as all contacts. And then finally, we have some additional settings. So these settings mean that HubSpot is just going to create properties for us on those specific records. And like we just saw with that time since and time until properties, that gives us a way to filter on those values when it comes to things like our list views, our dashboards, our reports. So when we create these metrics, HubSpot will automatically create a place to put that score on that related record. We'll also have score thresholds here. And this is the way in which we can rank those scores on that dashboard that we saw. So what contributes to being a good fit, a certain point value, and what's a not so good fit. Things like 0 to 14, that's not so great, but 30 to 50, that's pretty good, and we want to track that information. After we've set all that up, we can review and update, as well as turn this lead scoring metric on and off. And we'll also have some different options. Maybe we want to preview how this new updated score threshold affects our distribution, or even just test a contact record to see how they score. All right, that was our lead scoring. Up next, we'll take a look at the sales workspace. So again, this is sort of an all-in-one platform for your salespeople to use to keep on top of their leads, their deals, their tasks, their scheduling. Now with this as well, as we'll see in just a moment, HubSpot will also provide us some recommended actions for your sellers to take. So this workspace can be accessed by viewing the sales option over here and then sales workspace up at the top. Now, like I mentioned, we'll have our summary tab here. So our summary tab gives us this little window into tasks. So things like high priority tasks, the total of all the tasks, and then this breakdown of different task types like to-dos, calls, and emails. Now with these tasks, we also have this dropdown up here in the top right-hand corner that lets us select specific date ranges. So right now I'm looking at all tasks, but maybe I wanted to look at due today, due tomorrow, or my overdue tasks. Just to the right of that task section, we'll also see anything related to sequence activities. So if I have any open and active sequences, I can scroll through them and then see my current activities for each sequence. So right now for this re-engage cold prospect list, I see that I have 2 contacts enrolled in that, and I actually have 2 overdue tasks that I should probably get going towards. Just below this, I'll see this guided action section. And this is recommendation that HubSpot is providing to you in order to make the most of your seller's workload. So there are 3 sections here. There are all actions, there are deal related actions, and then there are prospecting related actions. And all actions is just a culmination of these other 2 action sections. Now we can see some examples of actions that HubSpot will help us with. So things like if we have a meeting on our calendar, HubSpot will help us prepare for this meeting and generate a meeting summary for us. We can also see that we've had 2 deals that need some sort of next step because there's nothing currently on the books. So we can update our next steps for those deals. We can also see that 2 new contacts have been assigned to me. So maybe I should reach out to them or even enroll those new contacts in a sequence. Over here on the right-hand side, we'll see this little schedule window. Now this schedule window will only appear if you do have your Outlook or other calendar connected into HubSpot. But what that'll do is overlay the activities, tasks, meetings that you have in HubSpot, along with the items that might be added separately to your Outlook calendar. We'll also have this insights section here where we can see things like what's going on with our sales pipelines and some reports on meetings and activities. And then finally, we'll see a feed over here, which relates to contacts and their activity feeds. So things like booking a meeting, if someone clicked on an email, opened an email, or visited a web page. Finally, with the sales dashboard here, we have some sections up at the top that lead to list views for the specific areas. So here's where you can focus on your leads, your deals, your tasks, your overall schedule, and then your feed. For now, we'll take a look at our deals section here. And we can see with this, there are 2 different attributes here. So we do have our view on the right-hand side, but we do have some preset views and saved views over here on the left-hand side. So by default, HubSpot will offer you some preset views. So these are things like the open deals, the stalled deals, recent activity, if you don't have any activity scheduled, stale deals, all deals, and the deals you've closed, won, and lost. As well as if you've created any views on the deals object itself, you can also see those views over here on this Saved Views section. If we take a look at tasks as well, here's one of the main core functionality of this HubSpot sales workspace. Is just like before, we can see some preset views in our saved views as well. But over here on the right-hand side, we can create a task, but also start all tasks. And what this will do for us is if we click Start All, is it'll open up a new sort of display for our tasks that help your salespeople work on their tasks in a timely manner. So over here on the left-hand side, we'll see all of our tasks that we have not yet completed in this little list view here. And with this list view, we can click on any of these other tasks to jump around to those other tasks. Now this middle section here is going to be attributed to actually working the task. So if we're trying to create an email, we see here we have this little email window here. If we're making a call, we can see this is now a call where we can take notes and make a call. So a lot of different options here, depending on what activity type we're working on for that task. And then over here on the right-hand side is where we can see some information this task is actually related to. So if we're looking to make a call to Lurkin's Logistics, HubSpot provides us some information about the task and also includes some Breeze Copilot features for us, like a summary of the record. And then down here at the bottom, we can actually see the full details of the properties that are on that record, as well as any related information like deals, leads, contacts, recent activities, all things that you would typically find on the regular HubSpot records. Now, in order to progress these deals, once we've made our actions here, we can either save and complete task, or we can click this complete button up here in the top right-hand corner. Now, either of these options is going to complete the task for us, remove it from the list over here on the left-hand side, and then progress our taskbar. Now, at any point, if we've done enough for the day, we can change to another area, or we can just click Tasks to get taken back to that task list view in that sales workspace. Up next, I want to take a look at some Breeze Copilot functionality, specifically related to auto-completing prompts. So in order to access Breeze Copilot, we can click this Copilot button up here in the top right-hand corner, and this will pop open this Breeze Copilot side panel. Now the functionality we're going to be looking for is the summarization. So if I type in something like summarize, you can see that Breeze is trying to provide us some options on things we can summarize. So do we want to summarize an article, a campaign, a company, a contact, a deal, a ticket, as well as some other options. So let's say we want to summarize a company. Now Breeze is going to prompt us for that company name. So maybe we want to take a look at Topline Industrial. You can see here it fills out that information for us. And in order to submit this prompt, we just click this send button here. Now Breeze will take our prompt and then provide us that information based on what our prompt was. So here we have this nice little summary of our prompt. Now if we go to create a new chat, we also have another ability to see those prompts, and that's just by clicking that See More Prompts button here. Here we can see all the different categories of prompts that Breeze can offer us. So whether it's things like summarization, generation, research, creating reports, or even creating records, we can see all the different functionality we have to offer. Now, just like before, I can click that Summarize Company, and I'll get taken over to that exact same prompt where I can then fill out the company I'm looking for. Now, as you might have seen, each of these different items also has a star here. So if there's an item we want to go back to repeatedly, we can favorite it so it will appear up here in our favorites section for easy access in the future. Now that was the new Breeze Copilot autocomplete functionality. Next, we'll just take a quick look at our reports and our analytics dashboards, specifically relating to the ability to schedule these reports out at a recurring basis. Now this can be done on either reports or dashboards. First, let's just take a look at reports. So if I have a report that I'd like to send out frequently, maybe something like we have a sales meeting every Monday, and I'd like to email everyone in the sales meeting this dashboard or this report so they have it for quick access when it comes time to have that meeting. All we need to do is on any report, click this actions here, and then share via. This will open up this side panel. Now for reports, we can only share via email. We'll click next. And here is where we can set if we want this to be a singular email or if we want this to be a recurring email. Now, if we select a recurring email, we want to give it an email nickname. So this is just an example. We can add internal recipients. So these are the people internally that we want to receive this dashboard. We can also add the contents of the report or dashboard as a downloadable file. So things like a CSV or an Excel file. And then we can type in our email subject message, add our schedule. So do we want this daily, weekly, or monthly? And then what time of day we want this. The same is also true for our dashboards. We can do the same thing. So if we have a dashboard, again, for something like a sales meeting that we have weekly, just to keep updated on workload, we can do the same thing from up here with the share button, email this dashboard, and we'll pop into this exact same menu. So here again, we want to create a recurring dashboard. We can attach our schedule. So maybe we want this every Monday. We can also select multiple days of the week. So maybe if we had a Monday and Friday call, we could select those options as well. Again, just like before, we'll choose our time of day. Now with dashboards, we can also choose if we want to export this as something like a PDF, a PowerPoint, or a bunch of zip or PNG files. We can also choose if we just want to include one chart per page or multiple charts per page based on sizing. So let's go ahead and schedule that email. And we can review how we've shared and scheduled. By now that we've shared that recurring, we'll see this manage recurring emails section here. And this is where we can see those different areas or different recurring emails that we've added. Now, one thing that's nice about this as well is with this recurring section, you can actually set up multiple different recurring emails at once. So if you do have that sales meeting weekly, you can set up one recurring email to your sales team so they get that report every Monday. But if you also have a manager check-in that might happen monthly, you could also send this dashboard separately to your manager at a monthly recurring basis, and both of those can be ongoing at the exact same time. So a lot of cool functionality you can do with this emailing dashboards on a recurring basis. And like I mentioned, it does also work for reports. Now that is all the content I have today for our HubSpot webinar. Now as well, if you'd like to look at implementing any of the features or functionality we've talked about today, you can also reach out to your account manager to discuss how you can best utilize these features. With that said, I hope you learned quite a bit today, maybe something you can take out of this, and I just want to thank you for attending our webinar.